All right, guys, I'm here working on a 2004 Kawasaki Concours 1000. I kind of wanted to do these videos, and I do a lot of my videos on you can get a cheap bike and have a lot of fun with it, and maybe pick up a cheap bike and see what all kind of maintenance you have to do to it. So maybe it's your first time bike, and or second, or you just want to start working on your own bike. But I hope some of my videos have helped you out. And if they have, please like, subscribe, and do all that stuff and leave a comment. It helps. These videos take a lot of time, and some videos don't get many views. I don't know if YouTube's not pushing them out there because I don't do a video every week. I try to, but I can't always just with my schedule. But I want to show you a bike. I've already done one video on this bike, and I don't know which one I'll put out first. But if you haven't seen it yet, okay. Keep having interruptions. So sorry. This is a Kawasaki Concours GT 1000. It has a lot of different names in different places, KZ 1000, what have you. But it's 1000 cc, maybe a 996, something like that. But anyhow, it's a great touring bike. I've never owned one and wanted to own one for a while because I think they look cool, but maybe just me. But this bike only has 19,000 miles on it, but it sat at some point in time for some time off and on. I bought it from a gentleman who said he was out riding it, and all of a sudden it lost power. Like, he thought a fuel pump went bad in it, but it's a carbureted bike, so I was like, I don't think that has a fuel pump, but Kawasaki does do weird things. But anyhow, what wound up being the problem is the carbs were all clogged up. Cleaned those really good, got them back in the bike, have the bike running. It does run, but I don't know what maintenance has been done on this bike. So I'm going through the whole maintenance list in the book and going to do hopefully all the maintenance at some point in time. And I want to break it down on what you can do. Like I said, I got this bike for $1,000. So I just want to go through all the maintenance, and I'm thinking I can get this valve cover off all right and do the valve adjustments with the plastics like this. So we'll see. Let's get to it. So next, I'm going to start probably pulling items up here like the coils and the air valves. All right, so I disconnected the coil. I just have them sitting back here with the spark plug wires. Make sure yours have the marks on them of which cable goes to which plug, because it's 1 and 4, and then 2 and 3 work off of one coil and the other one. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4. It skips. So you just have to make sure you pull them out right. I did blow this all off with some air to make sure there's no debris that hopefully won't fall into the spark plug holes or down into the motor itself. What I'm going to do is probably see if I can I'll pull the valve cover, get the valve cover loose, pull the plugs out, see if I can shove something down in there to keep debris from falling down into the cylinders. So next we have to remove these air valves. So that'll be the next thing. Okay, so you pull the 4 bolts for the air valve, and you have to disconnect this. Here it is right here. Pull this main hose out of the air box. You disconnect the smaller air hose from the air hose that runs along the carburetor. There's a little disconnect over there, or a little T. You just disconnect that. And so now you're ready to go ahead and pull your valve cover gasket, or your valve cover. I just have this. Here's the air valves and everything right here. I'm just going to set them all here with the bolts. Make sure you keep everything straight. Be careful with the the middle bolt on this right side, because that air hose wraps around it, and I could not get the air hose to disconnect from the valve up there, so I had to disconnect it from the carb. And that bolt is really hard to get out because the hose wrapped around it. You don't want to accidentally drop it down in the spark plug hole, especially if you've already removed your spark plugs. I have not. I was going to do that after this. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. I'm going to go ahead and pull all the bolts out of the valve cover first and then pull the spark plugs. All right, guys, I did have to take this vent off of the side and the crash bar, as you can see, and get the whole panel out of the way because this valve cover would not lift up past the way the vent thing wrapped around here. So you do have to take that off. All right, I'm going to complain a little bit. I love Kawasaki, I love Suzuki, but to have to do this every 6,000 miles, I think is a little ridiculous to take this many panels off just to check the valve clearance. I'm sure after you do it a couple times, you're like, oh yeah, yank it off, 10 minutes, you're done. But the first time, it takes forever. And on the vent on the other side, somebody had like cross-threaded one of the screws that went in here to hold this panel in. So I about never got the screw to break loose, and it was tough. But I got it off. So now we're going to take this valve cover off. I think we should be able to lift it right off because you have to kind of lift it up, I think, and go forward a little bit and kind of wiggle this thing. Apparently it's a pain to get out, but they say it slides right back in. We'll see. All right, going to go ahead and take this out. Okay, I've got the valve cover off. You want to make sure that you get the valve cover to come out of these 4 spots on the head. There's two on each side. So make sure you get the valve cover gasket to pop out of those. Then you can kind of wiggle the valve cover around, and you got to do a little dance with it and kind of push it up and kind of pull it back, and then you tilt it coming back towards the back part of the bike, and it comes out. Not the easiest thing in the world, but I think after you do it once, you should be okay. So now I'm going to pull the plugs, and that way the motor will turn over a little more free, and we'll start on the valve adjustment. All right, so I'm pulling the spark plugs. Here's what I like to use. I have this BMW spark plug tool. Works really good for taking out spark plugs. I like it because it has this plastic part down in here, and most of the time it helps hold everything up straight, so you're getting the plugs nice and straight. And so I loosen them up, and since these sit down in their ways, I use this tool here that I've shown on probably several videos already. I like this because you can snap down on the top of the spark plug, and then you can twist this piece on the end, and it pulls the spark plugs right out, and it holds onto the spark plug. Let me see if I get it all the way out. It's kind of hard to do with one hand, but just keep twisting it. It takes the spark plug right out for you and holds it so it doesn't drop back down, just like that. So I like these two tools I use when I'm removing spark plugs and engine like this where the plug hole is recessed like that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these plugs and take a look at them, and then I'm going to put paper towel down in these holes so nothing can fall down in it while we have everything torn apart. All right, guys, as you can see, I put paper towels in the spark plug holes. What I'm doing now is, once I started looking at everything, cylinder 2 is perfectly lined up to check the intake and the exhaust valves. The intake is supposed to be 0.13 to 0.18, so 0.13 to 0.18. So I've got a 0.3 feeler gauge here. Hopefully you can see this. The one valve on the intake is pretty good at 0.13. This other one is tight though. The gauge won't go all the way through it. So I'm going to loosen these up, but I'm going to go loosen them up to the 0.18 spot because I want them to be at the end of the tolerance, because valves seem to tighten up instead of loosen up. And also I wanted to show you real quick, I found this paper that somebody had left in my manual with all the cylinders. You can put the mileage and the date and everything. So what I'm going to do is document what these are, and then just keep track of it the next few times I do a valve adjustment and kind of see what the valves are doing. So I'm going to go ahead and do this now, and I will be back in a minute. All right, got all the valves adjusted, and if you can see through my terrible chicken scratch there, you can see what some of the valves were. The number one intake was in spec, but the tight end of spec for the left and right one. I adjusted them to 18. I wanted them at the highest end. And then you can see number 2 was at 10, and that was 13. Number 3 was 15, and number 4 was 3 and 10. So those number 2 and 4 were pretty tight. And then all the exhaust valves, I mean, number 4 was at 10, and it's supposed to be between 18 and 23, 18 and 23. So all of them are tight. So I've adjusted them back up now. And I'm just going to show you real quick how I did it. Like right now, you can see that these two lobes are facing, for number 1, are facing towards each other. You want them facing away from each other. So what I did was just tap the starter button until I got them facing away. And then this is the 23. So for exhaust, then you would just check your exhaust, and this fits underneath of it. So that one's good. That one's at 23. And then here's the 18 for the intake side. And that fits under there nice and snug. And check both of them. Both of them are nice and snug. So that's what I set them to. And that's how I did it. I've rolled the bike, did the starter over a couple times, just like that, just to check it. And you can see now that number 2, you can check number 2 now. And then same thing right on down to check them all. And you can even feel that now number 2, the valves, the rockers are loose. So you can see that they're loose where number 1 now is tight. So that's how I did it. That's one of the ways I read it in a book. Now, what I'm going to do is torque these adjuster bolts down. Sorry if you hear a hissing noise. My compressor is almost out of air, so that's what it does when it's almost done. So I'm going to torque these down to 18 foot-pounds, all the adjuster nuts there, and we'll be wrapping up this part of the valve adjustment. All right, the next thing we're going to do is spark plugs. Spark plug gap should be 0.6 to 0.7. So I've got the spark plugs here. I have this old spark plug gap setter that I've had for years, and you can kind of put it on here. I just put a wire tie on it because I kept losing it in my toolbox. So slide it around, and that's just a little bit above 0.6, but it's still in range. And here's the other one. This is 3 and 4. And same thing, it's right in the range of 6 and 7. So those two are good. I went ahead and cleaned them up. I'm going to reuse these. They're good. Don't see any reason why I shouldn't use them. So I'm going to go do the same with 1 and 2, and we'll get ready to put them back in the bike. All right, I got all the spark plugs cleaned up. I'm getting ready to put them back in the bike. Set one down here. Like I said, what I do, let's see if you can see it with this tool. I just put the spark plug in, kind of give it a good press down in there, and as you can see, when you spin the bottom of it, I don't know if you can see, but it's spinning the spark plug. So that's the way I feed them back in, so that way it helps you not to cross thread them. So you can kind of fit them down in here, get back on the hole, and then spin this back part. I'm going to probably have to do it with 2 hands so I don't cross thread it. So, but that's how it works. This tool, I'm not sure where you can find this spark plug starter at, but I got it from Snap-on, the Snap-on truck. and you may be able to find them other places. Amazon probably has them now. I've had it for years. You can see it's kind of pulled apart in the middle, but it still works just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and start these spark plugs, and we'll get ready to tighten them down. All right, guys, so we're done with the valve adjustments. So now we're going to put the valve cover back on. What I'm going to do is clean these little half moon places out here, and I'm going to put a little bit of gasket sealer there, just a little bit on all four of these little lobes. And then I'm going to put the valve cover gasket on first, and then we'll put the valve cover on, and then try to make sure we get the valve cover seated properly on the gasket. That's how I've read somebody else did it, and they said it was much easier than trying to put the whole valve cover on with the gasket, which makes sense to me, seeing how hard this was to get off. So we'll get ready to put this thing back on. All right, guys, so I got the valve cover back on. I didn't torque this down. I just tightened it down till it felt good by hand. Kind of did a crisscross pattern with it just to get it to pull down on the seal all the way. I didn't go cranking super hard on it. This is another air suction valve that they said you should check. It has like a little reed inside. Looks fine to me. So that's checked off our list. So now we're going to go ahead and put the valve and everything back on for the emission system stuff, and then we'll put the coils in place. All right, so put the air valves and their covers back on. I ran this hose back here underneath. It goes back into the air box, and we'll go around. Let's look at the hose on the other side. This hose right here goes right onto the T of the carburetor, so it presses down right in there. We'll get that back on. This is the bolt right here. I don't know if you can see it, that you have to be really careful you don't drop it into the cylinder. That's why I put the plugs in first before doing anything else. I don't want anything to drop down in those cylinders. So I'm going to put this hose back on. We'll get ready to put the coils into place. All right, so we have the coils hooked back up, the air valve, all the plugs plugged back in on both sides. We've got these tightened down. So we've done all the valve adjustment and check. We checked this valve here. It's good. We checked the spark plugs, and those are all cleaned and regapped and back in. So I think we're kind of done with what we're going to do on maintenance right now. If you look down here through the maintenance list, I don't know if you can see it, but we have done pretty much all we can do. Up here, we did the spark plugs, we did the valve clearance, air suction valve. I'm going to check the air cleaner, but that's easy. I'm going to leave the bodywork off, and I think I'm going to leave the ductwork here that we took off to get the valve cover off. I'm probably going to leave that off until we do everything with the radiator, because that just seems like it's out of the way. So I think we've done everything we can do on this part of the maintenance. I hope it helps you out. And again, I'm trying to show you that you can get a bike really cheap and get out on the road and enjoy some sport touring, some motorcycle riding without spending a lot of money. It doesn't cost a lot. Appreciate you watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and like I said, we're going over this, and I will probably keep a tally of how much we're going to spend on this bike, so you'll know how much you can do all the maintenance and get on a bike and enjoy it. Gives you something to do outside of work, outside of your relationships with your spouse or your kids or whoever, and you just need a mental break. It's a great way to do it. It's my therapy. So please like, subscribe, and we'll have more to come.